G'day guys, this is Chef Dan Churchill. I am today's man of the hour and I have the pleasure of hanging out with the legend that is Justin Crawford. Not only is he a handsome man, but I get to see him multiple times during the week. And now I get to chat to him all about what I did building my business, being a chef in New York City, surviving the pandemic, and talk to you guys about gut health and how you can truly be happy through cooking the right things in the kitchen. Make sure you hit the subscribe button if this is your first time listening to Man of the Hour, and obviously leave a review for Justin as well. Let's get into it.
Dan Churchill, it's time we bring you on this podcast. Welcome to the Men of the Hour. Hey, everyone, this is Dan Churchill. He's what we consider a celebrity chef, owner of my favorite brunch spot, Charlie Street, here in New York City, host of the Epic Table podcast, and just one of the nicest guys I think I've met out of a street side window during a pandemic. Thanks for being the man of the hour today, buddy.
Justin, dude, my bro, my one of the legends that kept the lights on at Charlie Street during a pandemic. No, man, you're an incredible human. And ever since we locked eyes through that window, I knew something special was always going to be between us, bro. So thanks for having me, man. Really appreciate it.
Oh, you're the special one, man. We'll get into the story a little bit later, but I wanted to ask you, buddy, when you hear the term man of the hour, I mean, you've been in America for a minute now, but if you've heard the term before, what comes to mind when you hear man of the hour?
It's so funny when you ask me that question, because standard Australian response is self-deprecation. So like anything that we have that puts us on a pedestal, you've got all your bros, or like my actual brothers, all my mates back home, and even my Aussie mates here, just on your shoulder telling you that if that's what you think you are, then don't even think about it. So when I do think man of the hour, you hear it on game shows, you hear it used across media in different retrospects, but I look at it, and this is honestly the honest answer. It's like man of the hour. Well, look, you and I are talking, and to me, when you asked me to do this, when someone said man of the hour, I'm like, dude, I get to hang out with the man of the hour, which is Justin himself. So I'm very stoked. I'm stoked. This is about you, man. This is
about us, and more importantly about you. You have a lot of things going on. You've had a lot of things going on, and I think when we started this show, it was ultimately just about having an hour. You know what I mean? Podcasts are essentially an hour long, and then having men on the show. You know what I mean? But if you think about the actual term, it's because you've built such a sustainable brand career for yourself, a sustainable restaurant that I fucking love. And man, there's just so much to you that I think provides depth and knowledge to people. Something I can't wait to talk to you about for the next hour is just how smart you are. I think listen, I don't know how many cooks are as smart as you are, but then you give that to people through your podcast. So we'll get to that. But for starters, I've not met too many people in New York City that, first of all, pop out of a street side window like a Charlie Street, right? But more importantly, who have your authentic energy to live a healthy and happy lifestyle. So where did that desire come from, first and foremost? Was it something you've always had? Let me tell everybody, you're Australian, and I mean, you said it earlier, you're Aussie mates and stuff. I know it's inherently something in the country of Australia where you all pretty much like just live and breathe lighter lifestyles and have more sun than people in New York do. But were you always this happy and healthy with the way you lived your life?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. I think, to be honest, I'm someone who's blessed, but also I put myself in a position where I've never really worked for anyone else but me. And I know that sounds weird. Like at the same time, that's had its own challenges, but I've always followed, and you heard it before, like I always followed my passion, man. So like when I was growing up, Australia's coastline is where like 95% of people live. So if you look at the landscape of Australia, it's quite big. 95% live on the coast. And as a result, coastline is definitely going to influence activity, outdoors, happy lifestyle. And with that in mind, like we know through studies that there's a direct correlation between your happiness and your activity levels. That is actually drawn to a couple of things, but one of the main factors is your happy hormones that are released upon actually exercising. not going into that too much just yet, but just personally for me, like I have, as I said earlier, I've got two brothers. I lived, not directly on the coast. Like we lived
Mm,
about 10 minutes from the beach, but I've always had a very happy lifestyle. Like, upon reflection, I talk about this all the time. Mum and dad, both in their own right, love me in their own way. My brothers. So everyone loves and hates their brothers, but I love my brothers in a way that I can actually call them like some of my closest, if not my best friends.
mm,
And I think my parents always taught me to be really grateful. And
mm,
that's allowed me to be excited by the small things in life, and also then be extremely blown away by the extreme exciting things in my life. So in a nutshell, my happiness is drawn upon my love for what I get to do. And that is in direct correlation with, being in an industry that's built around food and exercise and happiness through health. So,
mm,
but in saying that, it's like, that sounds like a kind of whimsical industry. So you like, there were challenges like financially when you're starting out. So
mm,
like, obviously I really had to love what I do, but at the same time, I started very young, so I didn't have to really have too many responsibilities other than myself. So, stayed, played rugby my whole life, finished high school not knowing what I wanted to do. So I decided to follow my path of what I love. And so when I did an undergraduate in sport and exercise science, did a master's degree in exercise science. That's where I get a lot of my base foundation from at the time, playing sport, surfing consistently, running around my brothers in the backyard. And I just love the feeling of activity. I'm always that kid who was like either climbing trees or something like that. But I always wanted to understand the why. And I
mm.
think that's the interest that, piqued me from that side of things. So I hope that answers the first question, Justin.
It answered the first question. Sip your espresso on the second question.
Mm.
Wait, more on gratitude really quickly.
Yeah.
Is that something you practice every single day? Is it something that you've had to learn to practice? I mean, because I'm one who I'll journal in the morning. I think a lot of people are usually like, what the fuck? You journal every single
Mm.
morning? It takes 10 minutes. But I
Mm.
think there's something to be said about being grateful for, like you said, the little things. And then when something extraordinary happens, you're like, oh my God, we're about to get something at Charlie Street. I can't even say it. I don't want to say it. It's probably proprietary, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, of course.
It's like all these great things are starting to happen. And how do you practice that? Is it something that you had to pick up? Do you even need to anymore at this point, or is it muscle memory to just be grateful as the days keep
N-
going?
Look, I think you always have to be grateful. And there's been moments where I think there's different types of grateful as well. And I've been picked up on it as well. Like, I remember within the first couple of years, someone said something happened where I thought I was grateful, but to some people I weren't.
Mm,
And that really hurt me and made me put my lights on it even more. And it's like the smallest things that it was a culture difference.
mm,
And because of that, I had to broaden my understanding of what gratefulness was. But to this day, like I wouldn't say like I journal. I don't journal that often. Like I really admit that. But what I do is it's like a habit. In the morning, people may or may not see it on Instagram, but I
mm,
read my book every morning. I read a book anyway, and whether it's 30 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, ideally, it's the moment that I have for me for that
mm,
day. And that's like my practicing meditation in a way. Cooking does that for me as well. But everyone's lives are chaotic. And if I think I registered, a few years ago, as long as I get that time in the morning for me,
mm,
and it allows me to be grateful for the day ahead, I kind of am always someone who reflects on the bad times, even with going, okay, look, as shit as this is, I'm not going to let that draw and, dwell. So I have to be grateful for some of the things that, haven't happened. So like, even you look at last year, man, like last
mm,
year, everyone knows that in some capacity, whether if you put money into a stock that accelerated, you still got hurt in some capacity, right? So as my parents always taught me,
mm,
I just had to look at what I call controlling the controllable. And so I only ever control the controllable and do not dwell on things that I cannot control. And that
mm,
allows me to stay grateful. And I think that's something that I practice
mm.
quite consistently.
I love that. You also get up really early to read your book and to
Yeah,
play with your
it's
new
true.
dog. Think about
Yeah.
it. So, wait, can we talk about energy for a second? Because
Sure.
people look at someone like you and I swear they'll be like, God, he wakes up at 5, probably doesn't go to bed till super late. You run around, you have to exercise, you do the podcast, you're cooking, you're managing a restaurant. That's only like the surface level of all of it. So how do you get up in the morning? And then what keeps you energized throughout the entire day? I know it's not coffee. I've asked you many times. I'm like, how much caffeine do you think is good for the one body? And you're like, dude, if you're drinking caffeine at fucking 4 p.m., you're not going to bed. So it's really
Yeah.
not just the caffeine and stuff, but what does your daily look like? What does the energetic Dan Churchill look like on the daily?
Yeah, dude. And to be honest, it's like by nighttime, and I've read the book Why We Sleep a lot.
Mm,
I've talked about it on my podcast a lot because it's very direct implications on a lot of factors around health.
mm,
But like I actually do get to bed early because I do get up early. So like if you look at my circadian rhythm, my rhythm's in a spot where I'll get up early and go to bed early. That's generally how it is. And to the point that like I'm the person who's out at a party and I've got a very low resting heart rate, like extraordinarily low. So
you
if
showed me that on
it's
your watch last year. I remember.
yeah, it's scary for doctors. I've had it my whole life, so I don't really know. But but anyway, point is, I'll fall asleep standing up sometimes. So like that's like for me, I put so much 100% of me in throughout the day, so
Mm-hmm.
that I'm absolutely exhausted by the end of the day, and then I go to sleep, wake up, and do it all over again. And I think of the energy comes from a couple of things. I'm motivated, like I really am. I'm intrinsically motivated to, hit things like whether it be targets, goals, things I personally want to achieve. And then I have a plan. So I plan things out. And I used to not do this. And I can't believe how much it's revolutionized my life because you are the same, Justin. You have multiple things you do in accordance with Justin, right?
Mm,
There's multiple facets to what you do, right? Like me, I have to plan. And if I don't, I'll just jump from one thing to the next and only do the good things that are in something like that. So you only do the exciting things and all the little things that weren't meant to be, that were also just as important, but you don't like in doing them as much, will not get
mm,
done. So what I do is I put a plan in place and that allows me to like have steps and whatnot. Now I know within myself with my energy, how my energy goes. I'm like
mm,
bang, 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 but I need to have a rest period in between. So like I have bang, rest, bang, rest, bang,
mm.
rest. So
It's really
I
smart.
know, yeah, like it's just a learning practice, bro. Like everyone listening right now will learn if they truly reflected upon themselves, like if they do, for example, the same as like anything analytical. If you analyze your Instagram, if you analyze your paid social, whatever it is on your platform, you will double down on things that don't work, or that do work, and pull back on the things that don't work. Do
Mm-hmm.
the same for yourself. Treat yourself looking, going, what's working for me? Reflect on that, and then double
Mm.
down on things that do work. And yeah, I think most importantly, I'm super energized about what I get to do, and I'm motivated to help people find and be empowered to cook better so they can have a
Mm-hmm.
better health for themselves through something that they can control, as opposed to having to reach out to other people all the time. That's essentially what I'm motivated by.
If that's not a mission statement, I don't know what is, buddy.
It's huge. It's huge. Like I got people
Yeah.
reach out to me on Instagram and like I don't know if they really realize, and I try and convey this, but when they hit me up and say, Dan, like I just want to let you know, like, you've had, profound impact on my life. Like that's
Mm.
my currency.
That's your
That's what gets
currency.
me, that's what gets me so vibe to like go, yes, this is one person, and this one person had maybe like the courage or whatever it is to actually tell me. And then hopefully there's people who don't, yeah, want to tell me, but for every person that tells me, it just motivates me so much to keep going. And I love it.
Mm. That's just on Instagram. You could imagine the people at Charlie Street. Let's go there
Yeah,
now.
thanks, man.
I wish we could
Thanks,
actually
man.
go there. You're there now. Not even shitting you. I got a burrito earlier.
Oh,
The you open up a restaurant with your best mates and your friends, which I want to hear a little bit about how it
mm,
is operating a business with people that you already knew. Because
yep.
normally that relationship's really hard, but I'm assuming Kieran, and Kale have a great relationship anyway. But what's been the best part about Charlie Street to you? Even during the pandemic, I probably saw some of your happiest days during the pandemic when things were ups and flows and stuff.
Honestly, man, it's been the biggest gift and a curse having a community, because that is the best thing about our restaurant. And it always is like of anything, right?
Yep.
You want to build and foster a community of people. And I love it because there's so many aspects to like things I see in days where like I'll see friends out at bars later and they met at Charlie Street, and they're like, and that is so awesome. Like that is so epic. And
There's not many restaurants, Dan, in New York City that can do that.
oh, thanks, man. Like we are so blessed to have such an incredible community of people, and we want to be we want to be that place that people can just feel at home. And we've always wanted that. It's our Australian hospitality. It's everything we've always dreamed of. But to the point that like, it'll be a beautiful Friday morning and I really need to get work done. And all I want to do is go and hang out at Charlie Street. So, but yeah, the best thing about pandemic, no pandemic, and it was even more clear in the pandemic, was just our awesome community, dude. It is the best thing. We love it.
Man. And then opening it up with your friends, though, had to have been pretty special.
Of course. And I say this lightly because, you know, a lot of people have seen what Kieran, Kayla, and myself have managed to do, and seen it as like, oh, clearly it's okay to open up a business with your friends. And I'll just tell you straight off the bat, I've seen people who've done that and they're no longer the same relationship anymore, which is, you know, obviously sad to see, but like, you've got to, it is a tough thing. And, you know, I'm way closer with Kieran and Kale than I've ever been as the years continue to grow. You know, I really mean that. And like the relationship we have is, you know, it's business and friendship first, but you do have moments where you have to like, it's hard, but I also know that the relationship we have is so special. And I can have like so right now I'm in my studio kitchen where we do a lot of our meetings, and we have meetings in here, and it's not an easy conversation to have with people, and you know, it can get heated, but we walk outside and we can go get a beer or, you know, go chill and be like mates again, which a lot of people don't have that ability to switch off. And it is definitely credit to the type of people we are and how we value our relationship before anything else. But that's also an awesome thing about being with friends and creating a business, because you create a bigger community around your friendship. So obviously I don't want everyone to jump into a relationship, their friendship, until they know your business partner really well. I'll say that, and just realize them as a business partner, not a friendship. And then when deciding whether you can get into business, they got to be good at what they do to help support the business. But if they are, happy days.
Happy days. Wait, what do you think goes wrong when people go into business with their friends? What have you seen go wrong?
Well, like, you know, it's like hiring people, right? Firstly, you got to know the way that you work together as a friendship is completely different to the way you work in business. So like, for example, you and I doing a series together, you're relying on me for doing something. I'm relying on you for doing something. If you don't get that done, it's hard to tell your friends sometimes to do their job better. Yeah. And then all of a sudden that friend feels defensive and can come back at me. Right. Sure. So it's like, you have a problem in that capacity, and there's also the skill sets. Like, your skill set may not be actually good for what we're trying to do, but being mates, you want to do a business together. So there's the importance to know that the person you are having a business relationship with actually has the skill sets to support maybe your weaknesses. Sure. But also there's that, and then there's the actual ability to communicate in a business relationship. Because once you're in a business relationship, the way you communicate is different when you're mates. When you're having mates, it's like, you know, you're out having fun, you're bantering, you're giving each other shit, whatever it is. Yep. When you're in a business relationship, it's a different form of communication, and it's direct. So, well, it should be to an extent. So just all I would say is, if you are thinking of getting into a business with a friend, just really understand their skill set and understand the way they communicate in a business setting. If you're really happy with that and you still want to do it, awesome. Just know it is going to be hard, but if it's the right partnership, it is amazing.
Damn. What about business in New York City then? I mean, this is the real one. Because this is, I mean, you went through a pandemic, you survived it, and now you're on top of it. But what would you say it takes to build and maintain a business, let alone a restaurant here in New York City?
Oh man, New York City, the city that is so opportunistic, but also so tough. Doing anything in this city, you know, I look at it like this. Like, when you're in this city, the more years you're here, the wiser you become. And it's a city that will say you're wise upon years you go elsewhere. I think it's 3x for every 1 year else that you're in this city. I just feel like you learn so much and you become so exposed to things here. It's astronomical. In saying that, you know, rents are very expensive in New York City. It's challenging because of the competition. There's a number of new things popping up all the time, and you have a shorter attention span here, even more so than everywhere else in the world. So, you've really got to knuckle down. It's not easy. It's very hard.
Mm,
And I wouldn't change it for the world, because having a restaurant in New York City, in 15, 20 years, 30 years, 60 years, whatever it is a cool thing to have accomplished.
mm-hmm.
And it's also opened opportunities for me with my brand as well. So I'm not naive to that, but it's pretty special. It's very special to have a place that people from around the world want to come to when they come to this city. I'll tell you that much.
When they do, I mean, people know. I mean, you said it's like sometimes it's opportunistic, but there's also so many facets to New York City that you won't really experience until you get here, I think, right? You've been here 4 years, no, longer. 4?
Almost, it'll be 6 at the end of this year. So yeah, like
6. See?
you just don't. There's an energy, and I think that we call it New York energy, as you know, Justin.
Mm,
Like, you cannot explain what it's like to live here and the reason why. Um, there's people who come here for a holiday and then say, "Oh, I want to live in New York," and they get here again. You're like, whether you're someone who can be a New Yorker and live here, and
mm.
it's not to, like, say people are better. It's just, it's a different mentality. You have to be able to hustle, put the work in, and if you get and be okay to be knocked down like 6 times before being able to get back up again. Because that's what
Mm.
it's like. It's like you're in a boxing match and you got to go 12 rounds. And after round 2, you're still knocked down after being knocked down 4 times. And you got to go all the way to round 12 to win this battle. And that's what
Yeah.
that's like in the city. But you're also in a massive stadium of people watching you in that boxing match. So there's an amazing
Mm.
opportunity for people.
It almost seems like, too, I was going to bring up the fact that it gets a bit smaller, don't you think?
Oh,
As you're here longer. You've been here 6, I've been here half of that. I've been here 3. But when you're in New York, and the reason we're talking about New York, guys, is like, if you think about it, I mean, majority of our listeners actually came from, I guess we started growing the listenership in New York City first.
awesome.
And I think people, no matter where you are, know what New York is, and people fear it. People are excited about it. But
Mm.
when they get here, everybody's experience goes to that slogan, which is to each their own. You have to make something, not of yourself, right? You can do whatever the hell you want to here. You can go cook and clean if you need, right?
Yeah, of
Whatever
course.
you need to do to survive. But you do have to make this the best possible experience to make it worth it.
Yeah.
Part of which is building the community, which you said earlier, that you're at least happy to see that at Charlie Street, but I don't think you know what it means to the people who come to Charlie Street. That's one place. I mean, you could imagine you guys do your workouts on Thursdays, for example. You are about building community. Probably it's ingrained in you. It's probably part of your blood. I get it, right? I can't say that Japanese people are the opposite. It's not always been about bringing a bunch of people together.
Mm.
But being in New York City, when you find the pockets of communities, especially during a pandemic, I don't know if you remember this, but last year when the pandemic had first hit, we started seeing everybody leave. So then I started thinking, I was like, besides Australians and a lot of Asians, people were fleeing the city. And so you began to wonder what your community of people was going to look like. And so for a long time, I'm not saying it wasn't Charlie Street all the time, but like really a lot of the people who went there were the ones who had stayed in New York, and we all had to rebuild a sense of community, thinking that nobody would have ever come back to New York. But now that we're all starting to come back, it's so interesting to see like there's a stronger bond to the ones who had stayed. And this is probably for anywhere, not just New York, but when you see the people, and that's a year that we had just like stuck around and then waited shit out. We waited out the riots and the looting and the everything.
Mate, it was an extraordinary experience. You're right. Like, people left the city. I mean, if you had family in a suburban part of the country, like, I can understand it, right? Like, it's like, why would you stay in the city that's closed down, where you live in a small apartment where it's not exactly like all the things that you're there for the city for is no longer open. So I get it. Like, but then at the same time, the people who did stay were like, okay, we will become closer. And we did, because we saw each other every day. We're in this together. We understood what it was like to like get through this. As you said, we had the riots. Like, it was a very, very interesting time, man. Like, not a lot of people, I will always remember that. I'll always remember being able to tell my kids, my grandkids, that I experienced that.
It's weird how we can already see ourselves telling our families and friends later down the line that
I was
year would have went
documenting
down.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's something beautiful about it. Before we get to your expertise, dude. We got to talk about food and nutrition, and I want to know what you put in your body. We see what you put in your body.
Mm.
We're about the half-minute mark now, so there's probably an ad coming up here in just a moment. But before that, when you think of putting the right people in your life, thinking about community and what you wanted to build when you first got here, aside from Charlie Street podcasting, going on the network shows and stuff, when you're thinking about your close friends and the people that you want to keep around to make sure you're going to be okay in New York for 6 years, which is now 6 years. How have you managed those relationships, personal and professional? And what ultimately about those relationships really keeps you energized and fulfilled as you stay so busy?
Oh, dude, that is such a great question. I have a rule that I've learnt about, and it's like
Mm,
you will know who your true friends are, particularly in this city. I first got here, and admittedly, fresh out of Australia, like straight into media, and
yeah.
I had all these people that were around me, um, and it was great. Like I felt like people really liked me for who I am and all this kind of stuff. And then as I you know became more ingrained in this city, and I continue to grow, I realized that these people weren't necessarily hanging out with me because of who I am, but because of maybe what I was providing them, you know, financially or whatever it was. And
Mm,
so I've had some amazing people in my life who are, just I would not be who I am today without them. And they're my true friends. I also have people in my life that, irrespective of whatever I do, and the same goes for me, like
yeah.
irrespective of whatever they do, I know if I called them and needed something, they would 100% either help me or help me get to where I need to be. And
Mm,
that's what I want in my life. I want to surround myself with people who are true friends. I obviously want to surround myself with people who inspire me, and I do. I'm very blessed. Again, in this city, I found
mm,
people who are a combination for me that I can relate to, whether it be activity levels,
yeah.
energetically, or just pursuing the same passions. And like the Jimmy DeSeekers of the world, like blessed to have him as a friend, one of my close mates, and obviously my friends I have around me now as business partners and alike. But I think I've learned to really know who my true friends are, and I really think about it for people in general listening in today. It's like, think about who you have around you, who inspires you, and also think about those people that you have in your life, but you don't know if they're actually there because they appreciate who you are as you, or is it
Mm.
because of what you are doing that they're around you? And that's something I've always learned to take into account. I don't know about you, Justin, but there's a lot of fake people out there, and I've learned to know who my true friends are.
Well said. I think the reason I asked that is because New York City, back to what we were just talking about, unless you live here, you don't really know. I've never been one to look at New York, or I mean, LA actually has a worse look if you consider everything people
Sure.
talk about it to be fake people and stuff. But the neat thing is when you find good people, like they could be dope, they could be funny. And most I will say some of them came from Charlie Street, but dude, there's when you strip all the bullshit away of what you do, how many followers you have, I mean, but that stuff is real, and just as well as I do that some people take it into consideration, but you have to, like you said, do almost like an evaluation. Sadly, when after you've started going on that friendship line of somebody, whether it was a business partner or someone you met at
Mhm.
in a nice little lounge or something socially, like you have to do a little evaluation every now and then and kind of see, because you have to listen too. That's really important in friendships. If they're
It's
not
very
asking you about
hard.
yourself, they probably don't care. Imagine.
Honestly, if it's just like that's another thing. Great point. It's like, are you listening to what your friends are saying, and are they listening to you, or are they just talking about themselves? We have two ears and one mouth.
Mm,
Think about that.
mm, yeah. I mean, you and I's are plugged up right now with headphones,
Yeah.
but and we have a mic, so we really have this going on,
Yeah, we really do, bro. Just got to
dude.
listen.
You do. I like that point. We're gonna end that one, but I want to go straight to food, man. Food and its benefits. I grew up with my mom always saying like, "Food is medicine. You have to treat it like your body gonna go in your body like that and make you feel real good." And I was like, "Shit, what is she talking?" She always, dude. And the interesting thing was, and I'm glad you're a chef and we're talking about this, because for so long I would look at food and my mom would make sure, even if it was like a curry rice dish, or a ramen bowl or something, vegetables had to be included. And there was always this idea of making sure that your plate was colorful. So we'll start with that. But what would you say is important to keep in mind, Dan? Now he's thinking about ramen and curry. Doesn't that sound good? We'll cook that together.
I love that. I just love
What
how you said color. It's great.
color?
100%.
You got to keep everything in color, man. Black and
Yeah.
white's not fun. But
No.
also, like when you just have one piece of bread and chicken in between, there's nothing fun about that either. So
Mm-mm.
what's important to keep in mind when thinking about the foods that you're putting in your body? Just top line for everybody listening.
Honestly, bro, you just said it. I have three things I always say about people who want to start cooking again and how they should always, have an idea of how to do so health wise. And I said, look, cut out refined sugars. There's plenty of sweeteners that you can use, such as like maple syrup or honey, that are a great little substitute there. The second one is eat plenty of colorful ingredients.
Yeah.
A simple way of putting this is every color is a representation of a micronutrient. And the more different colors you have, the more micronutrients you are consuming. So we all know that you got micronutrients, which are like, you may hear them as vitamins and minerals, a best way to kind of put them into a little group for you.
Yeah.
But you're more commonly known to hear of things such as macronutrients, just because people defy things like their health based on the amount of fats, proteins, and carbs, which they're actually consuming, which are macronutrients. Water is also a macronutrient. But for the purpose of what I'm always all about, everyone knows so much about proteins and fats and carbs to an extent. I'm so much about teaching people to just add colorful ingredients to their foods, because I feel like they're going to get the macros done no matter what. The micronutrients is where we neglect. So I would say, look, add plenty of color to your plate, whether it be through your leafy greens, just vegetables in general. Just find a way to add a couple of those things into your dish every single day. And at the end of the week, again, go back to reflection, have a little reflection upon like, how many different plants do I have this week? And if it's like 4 or 5, you're probably going to be deficient in some nutrients that are going to look after your health. And that's whether or not you're trying to lose or gain weight, whatever it is, or just in general, you suppress your immune system. Like, you're going to have issues there. So definitely do that. And the third rule I always talk about is like, how much protein you should be having. Well, that's the amount of protein that you think you need. There's the scientific version where it's around 1.7 times your body weight if you work in kilograms, and 0.7 times your body weight in pounds. And that's the best way to look at it. And there's different ways of getting protein. There's when people say like, that's a lot of protein, or like, that's hard to get. It's like, you have protein in plants and in vegetables. So if you're having animal protein and then that protein and then vegetables and stuff on top, you're still getting extra protein that you don't realize. So anyway, essentially what I'm saying is there's 3 things that I live by like that to help teach people. But the most important one, and going back to your point, man, is just one simple thing is add just colorful ingredients to your dish. And or when you go out, make sure it's colorful.
And then back to the vitamins and minerals part. I mean, there's a lot of people that are just popping pills nowadays, but there's also, would you say there's healthier alternatives? For example, I mean, you mentioned leafy greens and stuff that we could add, but if people are looking for like a quick fix, imagine, I mean, there's athletic greens that I've seen you take. There's like wellness formula from Whole Foods. There's all these things out in the marketplace now, but if there's some good quick fixes that you recommend, say for example, someone really is only going to eat lunch and dinner, which is normal. People skip breakfast all the time to fast. But if they wanted to make sure that even with these 2 meals, they wanted to kind of pop something in to make sure they're staying, healthy on the daily, what would those be?
Yeah, look, I think going back to education, empowerment, look, there's supplementation. But remember, supplementation is to supplement your already existing food intake. So Whole Foods, and I'll say this pretty clearly, so I hope everyone kind of understands this little this analogy that I use. But if your internal digestive system was a person going to the gym, and the food was essentially being worked out to break down into things, and you just gave it a liquid form, you would skip the gym technically, right? Because you're not breaking down whole foods. And so you gain the nutrients without working out. And so all of a sudden your body's, not knowing how to use its correct system. So you've skipped the gym for a couple of weeks. What happens when you skip the gym in general? When you skip the gym in general, you struggle to actually, lose the weight you want to, put on the weight you want to, do the physical characteristics you want to, and benefit those ways. So if you apply the same thing with whole foods, does the same, it helps us do the same jobs that our body's meant to be doing. If we just give it a liquid form of supplement or a pill, we're going to definitely affect that ability to do so when we reintroduce foods back into our system. So back to your point, whole foods first. So even if you're having two meals a day, make sure it's whole foods and it is plenty of abundance in colorful ingredients. If you were to go a supplement on top of that, yes, Athletic Greens is my one of choice because I think I've told you this before, man. It's like, it's got 75 vitamins and minerals in it. So it's like 75 different colors, essentially putting it. You can definitely get different formulas from different other areas, but it's the one supplement I recommend to every single person. So like I'm a big fan of that. And it's also got, this is something you should always look at when you're looking at digestion as well. Like I don't know how much do you want to go into the gut health, man? Do you want me to go into gut health now or wait?
You can go into gut health now.
Okay,
you already hit one of these other ones. So I was going to ask you about seed and these probiotic things that are out now.
Yeah, dude. Like you're okay. So everyone listening in, your gut is a second brain. And to be honest, I think it's the first brain because I love food. So it's it is a brain. It's got more nerves in its, vicinity than most of the body. Like it's fucking crazy.
It's insane.
Right? It's predominantly where the immune system is, I guess the way that we calculate the suppression and also how we upregulate our immune system. It's how we also instigate messages sent around our body from our brain. And I'll tell you how that happens. So we've all heard of probiotics. Probiotics are these healthy bacteria, these things that do wonderful things. We actually have probiotics already in our system. Our gut is made up of a variety of different things, one of them being bacteria. You also have, other things involved as well. But you want to be feeding these probiotics healthy dietary fibers known as prebiotics. So you've got the prebiotics, you've got the probiotics. So dietary fibers can be resistant starch, so things you get in, things that the obvious fiber. Then you've got like the resistant starch. So then you've got the dietary fiber that comes from plants. So plants are full of dietary fiber. Now you break that down, or we don't, but the bacteria do. And the result of that is postbiotics. So pre plus probiotics equals postbiotics. Now these postbiotics. It's like we're
doing math with you.
Oh, dude, I feel like I'm equals MC squared right now. This is great. So postbiotics do wonderful things. They are these short chain fatty acids, which essentially Dr. Will Bulsiewicz does a really good job. He wrote this book called Fiber Fueled. I recommend if anyone wants to learn about gut health, they pick this book up, Fiber Fueled. He talks about it as if these short chain fatty acids act like the security guards to some of New York City's best nightclubs when it was back open, and talk about how they're the ones, the gatekeepers that allow whether or not to allow messages to go in or out of the gut brain. The blood-brain barrier. So you got the blood-brain barrier, the barrier to which will enter things into the brain. And that's really important because effectively that's how you help instigate messages. So it is important for that. It's also important for your immune health. It's also important for breaking down all forms of your nutritional benefits that are then represented and go into other things.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the gut is a wonderful thing in the sense that this is what's going to blow people's mind. We are bio-individual. And what I mean by that is we are, no matter if we are twins, we are still specific to us. And the reason why, even though twins themselves have the same DNA, or identical twins specifically, they can have a separate and complete diverse gut breakdown, which will essentially make them so different that over the course of time, their physical characteristics, their phenotype, will result in them looking different to their twin. And that's a result of their gut being diverse. And the ultimate thing is for people to understand this. So it's not necessarily whether you, the most important thing is to get plenty of plant diversity, plenty of colorful ingredients into your gut, because the more a variety of dietary fiber, each fiber is broken down by a specific bacteria. And so the more your diversity of your bacteria, the more benefits you are to gather. So essentially like, you need a team of warriors, not just one person. And the best way I put it is like, Patrick Mahomes is amazing. He's a wonderful athlete. But if he has to throw to a Patrick Mahomes or get blocked by a Patrick Mahomes, he's not going to be he's not going to score as many touchdowns because he doesn't have he can't block. He's a great thrower and runner. So you need to create support by feeding the right fibers to be right bacteria with the right fibers so that you have a whole team doing their respective job. I hope, does that all make sense, bro?
Dude, you taught us about football. You told us MC equals squared. MC squared equals something else. I think it makes sense. Pre, pro, and post, putting the right foods into your body.
Yeah.
Because then it ultimately affects probably like how you feel too. Think of how sluggish people feel when they're eating the shittiest foods, right? That's because it's affecting your gut, right?
100%. Like the way that you break down food is like, if you break down shit food, you're going to feel shit because the shit food is affecting the way that your gut is, and your gut's going, this is shit food. So I'm going to send shit messages ultimately. Right? It's the way it works.
Yeah. If I didn't hear something right in my life, now I did.
Ultimately, guys, just listening, you just have plenty of plant diversity so you can create an army of awesome team members to do the job to support your health from your gut. That's all it is. Plant diversity, awesome.
So we can live till we're 125.
Exactly.
That's a
look
goal.
like Justin.
I want to see you. Oh, that's only because I'm Asian. I might not crack. Listen, dude, there's a lifestyle behind fitness and nutrition that I think a lot of people are looking at as a chore.
Right.
Every time I see you and I's lifestyle, it's like we enjoy it. We like the endorphin releasage. I like eating leafy greens. You like eating the sweet potatoes and the chia seeds and these things that some people just don't know enough about, for example, and don't really care to study. But I think some of it's because people look at it as a chore. When I used to look at it as a chore, that's when I started doing sports. I was like, I don't need to go to the gym. I want to do sports instead. So that was for fitness. But then for nutrition, I was loving Japanese not nasty foods, but heavy ass foods. And then I just always remember, I was like, you know what? Food is food. I had to change my perspective wrap on it a little bit. Instead of looking at it and saying, God, that tastes and smells so good, and I just want like curry or the ramen I mentioned, it's not that great for you, right? So much salt and like so much. But when I changed the perspective, I said, you know what? It's just food. And as long as you can just break it down, put it in your body, that's its perspective, I think. How do you wrap your perspective around making a lifestyle out of fitness and food?
Dude, I think it comes down to your intrinsic motivation, what you're motivated from within. And for me, I'm blessed that I love food that's clean. I love healthy food.
Yeah.
I don't love healthy food. And as well, I love healthy food. I love food that just happens to be healthy. Right. So I'm motivated. Like I'm not like, hey, I love a burger. I love pizza.
Sure.
I love all that stuff, but I don't enjoy having that all the time. And I'd much prefer to have like nutrient dense ingredients. So I'm going to be a unicorn in this situation. So I'm not a good case study to refer to. But what I will say is there's a unique balance that each person will find for themselves. And ultimately, it goes like this, a pattern of behavior. People have been eating a certain way for so long, and they have to break that habit. Now, you are either type 1, where you need to go cold turkey, and you set on your new path. What we do find is people who just break a habit into a complete new habit like that, they tend to break their new habit just as quickly as they broke into that habit. What we like to see is a transition on long-term success. So it's just gradually over time transitioning. And I think there's certain things that people have to do to achieve that. They have to enjoy these habits they're going into ultimately. Like you have to find an intrinsic motivation that gets you going. If you are doing it for you, it's much more impactful than if someone else told you. That's why I always tell people, it's like, it's not when you're around me that I care. It's when you're not around me that I care. So, because ultimately I'm not there. People want to impress me. They want to say, hey, I'm eating these foods. Sweet. That's awesome. But when you're not around me, what decisions are you making? And are you doing it for you? And that's ultimately what it is. So to your point, Justin, like, as I said, I love my lifestyle. I love being active. I get out of bed in the morning early because I'm just excited for the day of firstly going to the gym, reading and eating. Like I get out of bed excited to eat like oatmeals and all this kind of stuff. So I'm weird. I know that, but I know that I need to find with each person what intrinsically motivates them. And so the question is rhetorical, but back on your listeners is if you are looking to lead a healthier lifestyle, What is the why? Why do you want to lead a healthier lifestyle? If it is physical and you see someone on Instagram or on a cover of a magazine you want to be like, it's going to be short-lived. And I know that, like, that there could be the rare person that's like, no, that's how I'm going to do it. That's great. But
Mm,
what I want those people to think about, think about yourself achieving that goal in that position, visualize it. Because if you visualize it and you genuinely are happy still, fine. That's awesome. Go. That is your true north. The same for
mm,
people who say to me, Dan, I want to lose 30 pounds.
yeah.
Why? Because if you visualize yourself on that scale and you're 30 pounds less,
Mm,
are you truly happy? Does that number actually give you your happiness?
mm,
Or is it actually like, I want to be able to run around with my kids? I want to, you know, effectively, I want to walk down to the beach without puffing.
yeah.
Like, what is it that motivates you intrinsically? Seeing your father have a problem at, an early age and not want to have to go through the same thing. That could be it. Whatever it is, you
Wow.
have to find what intrinsically motivates you. Because if you're just doing something for someone else or some exterior motive, it's not going to last.
Mm. More on happiness, real quick.
Mm.
Go straight into what I was going to ask you about building a brand and doing what you love, man. Because when I see you, that's what I see. I see expert, I see smart dude, I see chef, I see all these things, but I see happiness, and that's a hard one.
Yeah.
When you love what you do and you can give that to a lot of other people, I tell a lot of people this in life. I'm like, yo, y'all think I'm happy go lucky, but I've spent a lot of time in the past 25 years working on this happy kid.
Yeah.
And it's the same for you. You spend the mornings reading and doing your thing in the morning so that you can then give positive energy to other people. I'm sure of it. But you have to tell yourself sometimes, like, what's going to make you happy. To your point, what's that motivation component to living a healthy and happy lifestyle too? Um, but I also see us and I'm like, gosh, nothing's stopping people who are happy. That's always going to be the case. And it's a beautiful thing, but something that's a far stretch for a lot of people who feel like they can't really find that for themselves, I think, you know? But what do you think? When did you maybe fully discover some form of happiness? And then obviously it bleeds into everything that you do now, which allows you to build a magnificent and loving brand for yourself across the entire spectrum of Dan Churchill. But when did you find that? How did you find that?
Yeah, that's such a good one, dude. Like, I look at, like, we just, every single time I do something, I launch something or whatever it is, there's always that aspect of happiness is such a core pillar of what we do. Um, Look, I think it's always just been part of who I am. I've always been a happy person in general. And hey, I have my days where shit is real. Like, it sucks. Like,
Mm,
and I'm not happy all the time. And but it's a big part of my North Star. It's like, if I'm not doing something that's going to achieve my internal happiness, then why am I doing it?
sure.
And
Yeah.
I don't want to look back. I don't want to look back on 10 years time where I've made X amount of dollars in the bank, but
Sure.
I'm really sad. And so I love learning. I love educating myself. And I know that I don't want to be doing something just for the North Star without the journey. And the journey is
Hmm.
part of the happiness, right? And so I registered pretty early on. Again, I'm fortunate that I figured out early on in my life that cooking in some capacity was going to be what I wanted to do for a living.
Yeah.
And being young, as I said, like, I had the ability to make sacrifices early. I didn't have to think about financial means for anyone else but myself. I could live very frugally for many years,
Mm,
figuring out how to make a business out of what I'm doing. And I want to make it clear that, like, there's some businesses, people struggle and they hear this, oh, I do what makes me feel happy, or like, I just do follow your passion, and that there's some things you just can't. Well, not can't, but it's harder to make a living out of,
mm,
because you can love something and just not be good at it, and it can be a hobby, or you can be good at something but not love it. So that's kind of like, I wouldn't say a job, because that's just putting jobs in general in a bad light, but you won't have eternal success at that because you're not keen. I'm fortunate that I'm good at something and I actually love it. That's
Mm,
what you need to find. So
yeah.
um
The center of the two circles,
the
in a way.
center
If you
of
think,
the two
you remember those
circles.
diagrams when
Yeah,
you do
dude.
that number?
That's
You have
great.
to find that little peephole right there. You see my eye coming out of it?
Dude, that's great. I feel like if we had graphics, it would just like would have gone in, and you and I would have been very spiritual as we were talking about that. But yeah, I think that's really important. Happiness is ultimately what you should be looking to achieve across everything, because happiness to me is your indicator of your health. If you're happy in your social, your physical, your mental, maybe psychological health, then
Mm.
you're ultimately happy, and that's what I always think about.
Mm. Speaking of brand and doing what you love,
Yep.
you're a podcaster, man.
Yeah, dude.
I remember when we first picked this one up off the ground, I was like, God, if we can be as educational as Dan Churchill is on the Epic Table, if you're listening, go check it out on your secondary phone, your laptop, whatever you want to go find it. When I first listened in, man, it's your personality. And again, it's the educational component to the guests that you bring on that allow people to feel like they're kind of having a conversation with you. Cause I feel like just as much as you want to educate people, you just said it, you love learning as well. Same reason I brought you on this show. It's interesting because in a podcast world, and I'm hopeful that people who are tuning in like podcasting, maybe want to launch a podcast. And we've talked about this before. It's not the easiest thing to do, but if you're considering it, you should also know that there's like so many benefits to being the interviewer, the person who has to have the conversation, because essentially you're learning as you hear your guests talk too. And it's a beautiful thing. I'm assuming it's the same experience for you.
Dude. Okay, before I answer that question, I want to ask you, and this I'm going to put you on the spot for a second. If there's one skill set you have with your podcast that's pretty unique, what are you really good at? I love this. The podcaster has become the podcasting.
Yeah, man. What do I think I'm really good at in terms of just the whole thing?
Yeah. I'll tell you what I think it is, but you tell me what you think it is.
Okay. I think I am pretty good at holding a really long conversation without any bumps.
Absolutely.
Don't
No,
consider
100%.
that one a bump.
But no, I think you make conversation so enjoyable, and I want to answer every question to you with such energy, and that's not just because I'm that person, but you convey that way, the questions and everything that you convey. But ultimately, what I would say is your skill set is you put yourself in the ears of your listeners, and so you are becoming, as you have said, you become the messenger. So one of the things about a podcast is I started a podcast because I realized I was having conversations with all these amazing people in their respective industries. And I'm like, everyone else needs to learn about this because I'm telling other people after hearing it from them. But ultimately, I've become smarter, not because I've read heaps of stuff, which I'm blessed to do, but because I've had an MBA pretty much done by having a podcast. I have, and you do the same thing. You're like, what do I want to learn this week? I'm going to get an expert in that field. I'm going to get them on the podcast. And because you and I research, we have our teams respectively, but like we do all the research, we find out about them, we ask the questions, and we think about it, and we like follow it up, and then we have to write, SEO stuff afterwards. So it nails into you. And all of a sudden you're like at a party and people are talking about something like, I don't know, we're talking about diabetes or gut health. And all of a sudden they're like, whoa, Dan, you're talking about like polyphenols and phytochemicals and bacteriophytium and like all these different bacteria strands. I'm like, yeah. And not because like I've done a master's degree. Yes, that has definitely given me some credibility, but ultimately all my words and all my knowledge has come from amazing experts. I'm not here to kid anyone about it. And you know that, and it's amazing. So podcasts are great. You've got to put time in, and ultimately you and I are messengers and helping our listeners learn more because we're selfishly wanting to learn more ourselves.
Yeah, but that's what makes it so full circle.
So good.
Is there anything you've discovered about yourself since doing it?
Anything
Anything valuable you feel like it's actually adding to your life aside from the knowledge?
Oh, look, I think I've if you put the knowledge aside, I did not realize how good of a communicator I was, a cheerleader, sorry, I am for people. And what I mean by that is I love seeing people win. I love hearing people in their expert world. Yeah. And so all I want to do is champion these people and let people know how awesome they are. I
Yeah.
had a guy named Nick Bear on 2 weeks ago. I got to go down to Austin and meet with the dude, and he's become a good friend. And the guy has just got the most incredible story. And he told me something about his life that he's never told anyone else. And I feel it was because I'm a relatable guy,
Yeah. And
and
it's
I was
you.
able to make him feel super comfortable. But he's very open and honest. But he's just like, I've never told him this before because just never, no one's ever really approached the subject the way that you have.
Mm,
And so that was a pretty cool realization. You know, I feel like
yeah.
I can truly get the honesty out of people. They trust me. They feel like,
Mm,
even though we've got like thousands of people listening in, I feel like they're just talking to me, which is great. It's
yeah.
great. I'm doing my job.
You're so great, dude. I have a couple more questions for you. Then we're gonna go play questions of the hour, which is
Sick.
just a super fun thing, dude. I want to ask you 10 random questions. Get the first thought that comes to mind, but it's
Perfect.
not gonna happen here. It'll happen on YouTube and on social media. What keeps you excited about the future? I know it keeps you excited about the day. It's your oatmeal in the morning and your dog and your coffee in the mornings, right? When you wake up. What keeps you excited about the future? And the reason I ask you is because there's a lot of things going on in everybody's lives, personally and professionally,
Mm,
to date. At one point in the pandemic, I think everybody was kind of doing the same things, which was
mm.
nice for a minute. But now we've all picked back up our lifestyles and what we want to do with them. So then there you have it.
Yep.
But I know I'm one who oftentimes I feel like I'm on track, but also off track at the same
Mm,
time because there's a
mm.
lot of things going on at once.
Sure.
Just like given the endeavors that you and I want to do, especially when you mix media with the other professions too.
Yep.
But for you, if you had to look forward, what's keeping you excited about it? What keeps you on track more than off track?
Um, Look, I think there's a couple things that I'm really excited by. There's some, you know, like everyone says, there's some opportunities in the
Mm,
next year/2 years that really excite me. Just on a personal note, like I for so long have just loved giving out advice to people through all my socials, all my website, all that kind of stuff.
mm,
But it's gotten to a point that obviously as I'm growing, it's harder to continue to do so. And so I'm really excited to have a platform where people can get this personalized nutrition with respect to actions through recipes that they can then get through my website that I can provide them. So that platform, I'm really excited to foster, to build an even tighter community through people who want to work with us like that. I'm excited for my book. I'm excited for a new show. I'm excited for Charlie Street. I'm excited for this podcast that continues to grow and have the most amazing community around me. And also, I'm just excited that I'll be able to travel and tell people's cultural stories that are about them. So, man, I'm yeah. There's some really cool brand stuff happening. Obviously, Charlie Street's fucking exciting. What we got in the
yeah.
pipeline.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, like honestly, there's so many things I'm excited for. I'm so excited. I'm excited to surf again.
Keep it
That'd be
exciting.
awesome.
Oh,
Yeah.
I bet. You're going to go back to Australia for that?
Well,
Keep it
no,
domestic.
I was just in Puerto Rico, bro. Like, so I could just do that for a
Yeah.
weekend again, right? I've got travel coming. I'm going to LA again, so I'd be able
Oh,
to do
good.
some fun games there. But yeah, I could be Nicaragua. Could be doing a showdown Nicaragua. So that'd be pretty fucking cool too. So yeah, man. Like in a
Keep it
nutshell,
exciting.
on the personal note,
Yep.
growing my podcast, and having my platform on my website, be able to distribute more content for people. The YouTube, my socials, obviously just get it open, that community. Charlie Street, launching our
Mm,
products, which will come out in about a month. Super excited to give your listeners the opportunity to hear that as well.
yep.
And then yeah, my book and show. So just keep it pumping out, bro.
That's great. Keep it exciting. But I think the reason you can keep it so exciting was everything we've covered in the past hour. Doesn't feel like an hour. We're already wrapping show, bro. Listen, when we first started talking, it was about you. It was about where you're at now, where things have currently landed, right? Always wanted. This is why, listen, you guys don't know this. Dan didn't look at the run of show before I sent it to him. But the reason I do these things, it's a story. You're hanging out with us for the past hour, so thanks for giving us your time. But really, it's a story of Dan Churchill while providing you with insights into like how he lives his narrative, for example. Right? You learned a little bit about him, food, community, family, friends, business, podcasting. Could you see how much we can cover in an hour? That I was like, wait. There's not just Dan Churchill, the celebrity chef that we've seen on TV. There's right? There's the entrepreneur, there's the podcaster, there's the happy man, there's the dog dad. Anyway, I have one more question for you. If you had to think of one thing, I haven't asked this in a couple episodes, actually, probably 20 episodes now. I have not asked this question to anybody. You'll be the first. If you had to think of one thing that has kept you in line or true to yourself as a person, you said this earlier. Some people were in it for Dan Churchill, the celebrity, right? Dan Churchill, the podcaster. But Dan Churchill, you, deep down, the young kid before you even moved to New York City 6 years ago, if one thing that keeps you grounded today as things get super exciting and as things fucking hit the floor, what's one thing? Could be a
That
person, could be a book, whatever you want it to be.
keeps me grounded.
Yeah.
Just the thought of what my brothers would say if I ever got beheaded, and my blood brothers, so my actual brothers, and also my mates here. So like that's what's been so incredible is I have grown in success here in America, and I'm blessed. I've been very fortunate with some opportunities, but as that's happened, I think I've still at heart with my friends stayed the same person, and I'd expect them to let me know otherwise. I don't want to change. That's who I am. And a lot of, to be honest, bro, like a lot of people want you to change. A lot of like people in big corporates, like doing stuff, want you to change, but like I can't. That's who I am. That's who I am.
Keep this one.
Yeah, thanks.
Keep this one, man.
Thanks,
before we jump off, I want to get your handles right. I know I got you on the. He's on the Epic Table podcast. He hosts that thing.
Thanks,
right?
bro.
Almost every week now. So, and you guys can go check it out. If you're listening to Apple, Google, Anchor FM, wherever you're finding your podcast, look up The Epic Table with Dan Churchill. Give us your social handles and your website as well.
Yeah, before I do, just make sure you leave a review for this one as well. So Justin's an absolute legend. So everyone listening, if this is your first time listening to the Man in the Apple podcast, hit subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast, and also leave a review to let him know how awesome he is as a legend.
Oh man.
You'll find me at Dan_Churchill on Instagram, my website, danchurchill.com, which is currently being redone. So if you hit a landing page and it looks like you got a baby face Dan, that's, give it a couple of weeks and you'll get new Dan. But yeah, that's, they're the main handles. You'll be able to find everything else from there, man. But otherwise, make sure you come hang out with Justin and I at Charlie Street at some point.
Yeah, that's where it's at. If you're in New York City, Charlie Street, Kenmare, what's the address?
41 Kenmare Street.
41
between
Kenmare.
Elizabeth and Mott on Kenmare.
Isn't that so fun? He dropped it for you guys. I think he did look at this run of show. I was going to give you a rating and review drop. No, man. Thank you for that. 100%. You know what? Thanks for being a great human, saying yes to coming on the show, for being a good friend and someone I can look at for advice, happiness, and just all around good energy. It's something you have to keep around, especially in New York City. So we're going to drop off the podcast with Dan Churchill. Thank you for spending the last hour with us, my friends, and we'll see you. I guess you'll really hear us soon, but hopefully we see you soon.
Appreciate, bro. You're our man.
Cool. We're going to go straight into it, buddy. Recording doesn't stop here.
Love it.
We're about to play questions of the hour. Thank you for tuning in wherever you are. I'm with Dan Churchill now. He's a chef, celebrity chef at that. He's a podcast host, the Epic Table podcast, wherever you want to find it. He's all over social media too, Dan Churchill. So we're about to ask you 10 random questions, my friend. I want the first thought that comes to mind. You're here now. You ready?
Yeah, let's do it, bro.
First question is, which best describes you, introvert or extrovert?
Oh, extrovert for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say.
100%. That's an easy one.
Think of 3 people you've dated. What do they all have in common besides that they're no longer with you?
Oh, wow. This is a great... they've got really good eyes.
Oh, I hope they're tuning into this one. Name your top 3 travel destinations currently on your bucket list.
Italy, Japan, and I would say Patagonia.
Oh, nice. I'll take you to Japan.
Thanks, bro.
There's a skill and there's talent. What is a natural talent you've always had?
The ability to foster communities, 100%.
Ooh, that's a good one, dude. What is the absolute best thing to do on a sunny day for you?
Oh, man. I'm hoping we're at the beach and surfing. Otherwise, yeah, it's probably getting a coffee, reading a book, followed by being active in some capacity, catching up with some mates, maybe getting a drink at nighttime, or I'm outdoor cooking. I know that was meant to be one thing, but I've just kind of given you like a good day. I just gave you a good day.
That's a beautiful day. I'm going to go plan my Sunday now. The year is 1983. You just found $10,000, Dan. No strings attached. What do you invest it in, knowing what's happening right now in 2021?
Oh, shit. Fuck. Bitcoin.
Yeah. I was going to. Finish the sentence for me. When I visit a new city, I always make sure to what?
Look up the best coffee spots.
Spots. He's a coffee animal. Caffeine man. What is
Yeah.
the one other language you wish you could speak?
Italian. I'm learning. Sono italiano.
Oh, shame. I don't even know what that means. Do you believe in magic, man?
Oh man, if you're singing it to me as if you were on American Pie, then yeah, do you believe in magic? Yeah, that's it. Oh yeah, why not? Yeah, I do.
You do? Yeah, me too. It depends on how it's presented to me.
I'm a big Harry Potter fan, so yeah, absolutely.
Oh man. Last question for you, Dan. Who's your childhood best friend and where are they now?
Oh man, no. Harry Cover is living in London after living around the world. He's one of my best mates. As a family friend as well. Shout out to Harry and his beautiful wife as well.
I can only imagine how mad your other best friends are for pulling in Harry and not them, but that's okay because the game's over. We don't have time to bring up all your other best friends, Dan. Thanks for playing Questions of the Hour. To everybody tuning in right now, we just dropped his podcast on the Men of the Hour podcast, and he's the host of the Epic Table podcast. Podcasts galore. Thanks so much for tuning in.